In our last class, we talked about inheritance, how one class can extend another class, um, and it inherits all the methods and variables from another class. Today, we're going to go a little further. We're going to talk about method overriding. So here, I'm going to start with a class called car, and I'm going to have two different variables. I'm going to declare them as protected, and my first variable is going to be a string variable, and I'm going to call it name for the name of the car. My second variable is going to be, I'm going to declare a double, and I'm going to call it price for the price of the car. And as done in our last lesson, we're going to need to create a constructor. So right-click source, generate constructor using fields. I select all the fields, click OK. Put some space in there. So this is my constructor. Next, I'm going to need some getters and setters. Again, we're going to right-click, source, generate getters and setters. I'm going to select all the fields, click OK. So these are the getters and setters. What else we going to need? We're going to need to have, in this case, we want to have a method in it, in this class. So my method is for calculating the price after taxes, so including taxes. Okay, so let's declare the method public double, because it's going to return the price, and the price is going to be of type double. And let's call it include tax. And I'm just gonna pass in the price. I'm passing in the price of the car, and it's gonna return the total price including taxes and all the fees and everything included. It's gonna return the final price. So I'm just gonna do return. In this case, I'm just gonna return 0 in this one right here. So basically, this is the default. What's going on here? Okay, I need a left parentheses. Okay, so this is the default. I'm just gonna return a 0. And that's my car method. So basically, I got two variables. I have name and price. I have a constructor. I have the getters and setters. And I have a method in it. It's basically a very standard. That's what we did in our last lesson. So next, we're gonna create another class that extends this car class. So far we're not covering anything new. We've done this in our previous lesson. So I'm gonna do right click, new, class, and the next class I'm gonna call it car US. And this one I'm gonna extends car. So car US is gonna inherit all the properties of the car class, all the variables and all the methods. And since car, the variables are declared as protected, you can use those variables directly here in car US. Let me see what it wants here. It wants me to add a constructor. So let's do that. And there's my constructor. Next, I'm gonna so here's the part. So far everything is from our last lesson. This constructor is just gonna call this the constructor in the parent class, the car class. So it's gonna pass the name and price to this constructor. Same as we did in our last lesson. And it's gonna create an object called card US, right? And here's the new thing for today's lesson. We're gonna override this method in the car class. So over here we have this method. I'm just gonna copy it and I'm just gonna paste it here. So basically I want to declare a method that is defined exactly the same as the method in my parent class. So that's why I copy it over. So it's public double. The name of the method is the same. The input parameters are the same. The only thing different is the logic within these two brackets, these two braces. The logic is going to be different. So instead of returning 0 for cars that are in the US, I'm going to return something different. So I'm going to return price plus price times 0.04. Okay, so this is assuming, excuse me there, assuming there is a 4% tax for consumers in the US. So if you live in the US, there's going to be a 4% tax on top of the price of the car. And that's what this class is for. Is for people in the US, when they're buying a car, they're going to pay 4% tax more than the price of the car. All right. And now, so basically I use everything I have inside the car class. The only difference is I overwrite this method to return a different value, to use different kind of logic and to return something different. I mistyped something here. Assuming 4% tax for consumers in the US. Okay. Next, let's do the same for consumers in Canada. So I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna paste it right in. And we're gonna do car for consumers in Canada. So let's say there is this is US. Okay, I don't want to change that one. I want to change the one for Canada. So let's say there's a 3% tax in Canada. And let's do one more. So I'm gonna copy the US again, and I'm gonna paste. And this time let's do it for consumers in Mexico. And let's say in Mexico, the tax code is a little different. It's a little tougher. Let's pretend it's a little tougher. So I'm gonna have to do more calculation, different kind of calculation. So I'm gonna have to declare a double for the return price, and it's gonna equal to this one. So it's gonna equal to the price of the car multiplied by, let's say they have very high tax in Mexico. They have a 10% tax. So we're assuming, let me cut this comment, put it here. So assuming there's a 10% tax for consumers in Mexico. And let's assume they have other kind of taxes. Say if they have a county tax, so we're gonna have to add on some more things. They have a county tax of $99. So it's a flat rate, $99 county tax. And let's add one more to it. Let's say they have a $500 value added tax, VAT tax. Okay, and we're just gonna return the return price here. And that's it. So that's the logic for consumers in Mexico. This is the logic for consumer in Canada. And this is the logic for consumers in the US. So those are all my classes: my car class, car US class, car Canada class, and car Mexico class. So now let's see how those work. So I'm gonna go to my main runner here. So I have my car main runner. So basically, let me run it first, and then I'll go through and I'll explain what's going on. So I'm just gonna run it, and it asks, what country do you live in? So if I say US, I put 1 for US, hit enter, and it says BMW final price will be 41, excuse me there, 41,600. So let's see where it gets that from. So basically, I'm importing my scanner. That's to send the question here and to read the input. And I'm importing all my class here, all the different classes: the car Canadian, car Canada, car Mexico, and car US class. So I'm importing all 4 classes here. And here's my main runner. I'm prompting here I'm just defining the scanner, and I define a selected car to be the initial car. So there's no country selected for the car name, and the price is 0. and I'm defining cars in the US, cars in Canada, and cars in Mexico. So for example, BMW in the US is $40,000. BMW in Canada is $35,000, and BMW in Mexico is $32,000. Those are just made up numbers so that we can use it as an example, but it's nothing concrete. Just made up numbers. So then I'm sending the user, what country do you live in? That's printing this line right here. And I'm reading the input from the user. And here, if the user enter 1, then I'm gonna set the selected car equal to the car in the US, which is this one right here. So if they enter 1, means they live in the US. 1 is for US, so I'm setting it to be car in the US. If they enter 2, I'm gonna set it to be a car in Canada, and if they enter 3, I'm gonna set it to be a car in Mexico. And then I just go over here and I do a print line. So I'm just printing the selected car. I'm getting the name of the selected car. So basically the name is gonna be one of these three. It's gonna be BMW, BMW, or BMW. So in this case, they're all BMWs. And then I get the final price of the car, which is the method include tax. And I'm passing in the price of the car, which is these prices here. So basically, it depends on where the consumer is from. If the consumer is from the US, this price is going to be passed in. Otherwise, Canada, this price is going to be passed in. Mexico, this price is going to be passed in. Now the interesting thing here is, even though selected car is of type car, but it knows which include tax method to use. So if I'm from the US, it knows to use this method. But if I'm in Canada, it knows to use this method. And if I'm from Mexico, it knows to use this method. And we can see that when I pick US here, it knows that the BMW is 40,000 plus 4% of 40,000, which is gonna come out to be this. Now if I run it again, if I say I'm from Canada, it knows that it has to use this one. So the price is 35,000, and it has to add 3% of 35,000, which is gonna give you this number. Let's do one more. If I say I'm from Mexico, it knows to use this price plus 10% of 32,000 plus the 99 here, and plus $500 value added tax. So if you add the price plus 10% plus 99 plus 500, you should get this number right here. If I select an option that is not on the list here, say like option 4, then it just says no country selected, and the final price will be 0. And those values are coming from here, because when I initially in my main runner, I started out with the selected car equal to no country selected and the price of 0. So if we didn't select the country, then it would use this method here, and it returns the 0. So that's basically how method overriding works. You just declare the same method name, same type, and same parameter as the parent method, and then the program knows which method to use according to the object type that you're using. So if in this case, if you're using car object type, let me see where we're at. If you're using the car object type, then it's gonna use the method in the car class. If you're using the car US object type, then it's gonna use the method in the car US class, and so on. All right, everyone, that's our lesson for today. Thank you. We'll see you next time.